Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
NCBA's Sustainability Task Force has released a set of goals for the industry. We'll tell you about them and explain what this means for you. Plus, lots of great highlights from this year's Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us as we bring you special coverage from the 2021 Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Nashville. There was a big announcement on the final day of convention as NCBA's Sustainability Task Force released its set of goals for the beef industry. These goals address the three pillars of sustainability: environmental, social, and economic. Here's a look at that important announcement.
You know, one of the things that this committee did, and this is the work of the task force of this committee, at our first meeting, the statement was made, well, are we just gonna play around? Then the phrase got used, we've got to be bold and audacious. If we're gonna do this, let's do it, let's hit it hard. So let me talk about this for just a second here. Demonstrate the climate neutrality of U.S. cattle production by 2040. Now, if you've seen television, you've seen some other businesses, other corporations take a theme something like this. This is not a theme that was taken lightly, and it's not one that we just made up. 2040 is real. This is actually the social side of it. Enhance trust in cattle producers as responsible stewards of their animals and resources. We've done such a great job with our BQA program, for instance. Part of this too, and this is also part of the social part, but this goes to what the consumers are interested in. Continuously improve our industry's workforce safety and well-being. Now, we know how important that is, particularly in what we've experienced with employees and workforce with COVID. But again, we've got to look at what is sustainability and how it's viewed by the public. And this is a big part of it for us. Build our resiliency. Because here's what we all got to realize, and I think every one of us does realize this. Without a profitable cattle industry, without an economically viable cattle industry, none of this stuff that we talk about, whether it's environmental or social or anything like that, none of it is going to work. We've got to have that. And this is what NCBA has always done and will keep doing. Let's show the United States and the world who we are, what we really do. Let's show them that we are the answer to sustainability. We're not the problem.
And joining us now to share more details on this announcement is NCBA past president Marty Smith, who chaired the Sustainability Goals Task Force. Marty, talk to us about who made up the task force and specifically some of the process you went through to develop these goals.
This task force was formed by the NCBA officers and by the executive committee. We sought nominations from every state organization. We had 17 people that were nominated. Every one of them was part of that task force. Every one of them was a producer representing really every segment of the industry and every part of the country.
Excellent. And why was there a need for this task force to begin with?
We, the beef industry, keep getting hammered every day, whether it be in print media, television media, on the internet, more particularly consumer attitudes at the grocery store and at the restaurant, and perhaps most importantly, we keep getting hammered in the halls of Congress, and particularly with whether it's USDA, EPA, Fish and Wildlife, whoever it is, what is the beef industry doing about sustainability? And because we're still getting incorrect blame from a paper that the United Nations did 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, that was debunked and shown to be not scientific, but yet that becomes a standard.
Yeah, exactly. So now that you have these goals, what's the next step?
Well, the next step is to act on what we've put together. Okay. And that is, and we'll just start with the top of it, demonstrate climate neutrality. You know, we use that term demonstrate for a very specific reason. It's our burden to show that we know we're the good people in this. We know that we do more about greenhouse gases. We take more carbon out of the air than any industry anywhere in the world. Yeah. But we don't get the credit for that. We know that what we do in preserving pastures, grazing, prairie lands, every bit of what we do helps the overall environment. But we've got to show that to the rest of the world.
So what do you want your fellow producers to know about the topic of sustainability and what it means to the future of their businesses?
What it means for everybody is, you know, we a lot of times get twisted and turned around by some of the media and whatnot, thinking sustainability is something different. Just one of the major parts of sustainability is economically sustainable. We can't do any of this if we're not economically sustainable. So much of what we put together as a task force revolves around things that are good for ranchers, good for feedlot operators, good for the beef industry, ultimately good for the consumer. And it means being more efficient, more economical, actually means being more profitable. That's as much a part of sustainability as anything.
Many of the things that producers are already doing.
Exactly right. And one of the things that we said was to make sure that we got credit for all of the legacy work that generations before us have done.
And remind me, you are how many generations on that Florida ranch?
I was 6 when I left home. I'll let you know when I get back, but yes.
That's sustainable, I'd say. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to learn more about these goals or just have questions about the topic of sustainability, you can visit the website ncba.org. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll look at how NCBA's Live Cattle Marketing Committee is helping producers manage risk in the beef industry. Plus, more coverage of the Cattle Industry Convention in Nashville. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you need a stock trailer built to stand strong in tough country, you need a Big Ben trailer. Designed and used by a family that runs cattle themselves.
I think one of the things that makes Big Ben different is that I don't know of any other trailer manufacturer that actually ranches for a living, and we get firsthand use. We get to know what works and what doesn't work, and if we find something that makes our life easier, we'll do it and design it into our trailer.
Big Ben trailers are packed with features. Well-designed latches, movable gates, LED lights, and an 1.5-inch gap around the edges for easy cleanup. Year after year, they keep building Big Ben trailers better.
Without a doubt, they're 10 times better than they were 25 years ago. Lots of options and features and user-friendly options that we have now that they didn't have back in the day.
Ranch tough at a fair price. Find out more at BigBenTrailers.com.
Being a leader in the nation's oldest and largest cattle industry organization takes dedication, as Minnesota cattleman Don Shiefelbein has proven. He served in multiple ways, including his current role as NCBA's president-elect. He's here now to share some of his insights on what it's like to be a volunteer leader. Don, you have devoted a lot of time and energy and effort to providing volunteer leadership in lots of organizations across the industry. Why do you do it?
Well, if you ask the family, it's because the farm works better at home when I'm gone. But the reality is Dad has a saying that says, as the industry goes, so does your operation. So you have to give into that industry and make sure it's successful for the family farm to be successful. So that's why we invest so much time and effort.
Well, you've certainly done your part, and we appreciate that. We just completed the convention last week here in Nashville. Tell us just a little bit about some of the key issues that were discussed over the week.
Yeah, of course, the major issue that's just vibrating through the industry is this dry conditions across the western United States. And, you know, it's been the driest conditions through lots of areas in the last 35 years. So just trying to get their arms around how do we just continue to function and how do we maintain our operation was a large discussion. The other item, Kevin, that was discussed, of course, is price discovery. And of course, that's an important issue that NCBA has been working on for now almost a year, trying to get our arms around what can we do to do a better job of making sure cattlemen get the best price possible for their product.
You know, I don't know if I can remember a time in my life where the cattle and beef industry has been discussed more on Capitol Hill than it is right now. And I'm curious, tell our viewers a little bit about the policy-making process within Ncba. How do you develop the policy that gets promoted and lobbied in Washington, D.C.?
Plain and simple, our policy is created at the grassroots. So it really is as simple as somebody has a great idea or thoughts and say this needs to be addressed. They push it through one of our affiliates typically, and that affiliate carries it to the national, and it's voted on and decided whether or not that becomes our official policy. Unlike what most people may think, it is not top down at all. It is just, we look at the policies and decide how are we going to implement the people's rules, if you will.
There's certainly been some frustration between segments of the industry that have been amplified over the last year or two. Why do you think it's so important to have an organization that represents all segments of the beef industry?
Because we are one beef industry, right? You can't do what's best for one without understanding how it impacts the other. So you have to have a collective thought as you put into policies that you aren't putting into a policy that negatively impacts or cripples another segment of the industry. It's got to be one for all and all for one, and I think that's an important logic when we go through Ncba.
Very good. Don, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Every day, Ncba leadership and staff is working on the issues that matter to cattle-producing families just like Don's. Join in the fight for our industry's future by becoming an Ncba member. Just call 866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. One of the key issues that was top of mind for producers in Nashville was the cattle markets. Here's Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Russell Nemitz with more on this timely topic.
Well, weather and markets are still the two most important things to farmers and ranchers. And here at the Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba trade show in Nashville, Tennessee, the Live Cattle Committee certainly addressed the cattle markets here of late. And with us now is the Live Cattle Committee's chairman, Jim Fryer from Bozeman, Montana. And this, without question, is a very, very important committee across the board for cattlemen and cattlewomen. Talk about the work that's being done and what you guys discussed at this convention here in Music City.
Sure. So there are many new things that have kind of come out over the last 1 to 2 years. And as we all know, we've been struggling with markets and to price our cattle, whether they're calves or fat cattle, finished cattle, has really come to the forefront for the entire industry. And we've been working through a lot of those dynamics. And today was really a good demonstration of kind of everyone coming together, you know, after the last arduous year and a half. Many of us put in 20, 30 hours of work per week just on Ncba issues last spring with COVID. But from those times, now we're seeing the fruits of that labor. So really some of the issues we talked about were supporting packer capacity, expansion, and some of the bills that are in the House and the Senate that are to address those issues and try to make sure we get the capacity we need for the supplies we have.
Absolutely. You know, going into this interview, you and I were talking about just how important it has been to have that input from the grassroots level, and that's exactly what you've gotten from cattle producers from across the nation on this committee.
No, I'd say that for sure. I mean, last summer during the summer business meetings, we had a 6.5 hour meeting. And I mean, we hashed things out, right? But since that time, we've all gone home, met with our respective groups, reconvened time and time again, and really it's been everyone has put their head down and they've gone to work. I mean, to accomplish big things. So we have contract library coming to the forefront. Some of the new reports from the USDA, 2 of them are out just this week. So they're introductory, and they're gonna help a lot to make transparency a big thing.
I think it should be reassuring to cattle producers across the country that we are making progress in this very important area.
Yes, that's right. I mean, because we've seen that, right? We've seen the friction a bit over time, and it takes so long to make progress in general, and let alone the fact that just getting new capacity online takes forever. So it can never come soon enough. You know, that's the truth, and now we're starting to see it come together and come forward.
So as we meet here in Nashville and eventually we'll go home to our own operations across America, what are some of the next steps that the Live Cattle Committee will be taking from here?
So really we have some new transparency directives, and we're going to continue some of the work that we've already started on understanding the dynamics behind pricing and understanding competition. I mean, it's one of those things that just grows out of knowing price discovery, but then also giving support where it's needed to make sure the capacity is coming online. And then there are things like the DOJ investigation, things like that, and making sure we're going to follow up with those things as well. But really, I mean, this meeting was a bit of a capstone for some of the big projects we've had recently, and I'd like to bring back, you know, discussions with the CME. That's been a standard part of our committee over the years, but we've set it aside a moment, so we need to get back to that. Talking again with the CFTC, making sure the markets are viable and sound, and we have good operators behind the screens.
Well, keep up the good work. You're doing a lot of important work as part of the Live Cattle Committee for the Ncba. Again, Jim Fryer, the committee's chairman from Bozeman, Montana. And you know what, friends? Just another great example of grassroots policy in the works and in action here at the Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show.
Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll introduce you to the national winner of the Environmental Stewardship Award. Stay with us. We're back in Nashville right after this.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
It is inevitable, like the rising and setting of the sun. Your gravel driveway will need maintenance. Drudgery? Never. Be the right person with the right tools doing the job the right way by watching How to Maintain a Gravel Drive Using a Box Blade with Hydraulic Scarifiers. Brought to you by tipsnotebook.com. When better how-to videos are made, we will make them.
And we're here now with the 2020 winners of the Environmental Stewardship Award Program, the Wooten and Burnham families of the Beatty Canyon Ranch in Kim, Colorado. What does this mean to you to be recognized among your peers for this prestigious award, Steve?
Kevin, what it means to us is it humbles us. This class of 2020 that were the recipients of the regional winners is an exemplary group of producers. They all are advocates. They all are at the best of what they do in their regions. And for Ncba and the sponsors to select us, we're honored, we're humbled. The Lord has blessed us.
And Joy, you said that there's folks that want to hear the message of beef industry sustainability. You all have always done such a good job sharing that message. What are 2 or 3 things you want people to know about beef industry sustainability?
That we take care of our land and our water so we can pass it down to the next generation and for the future.
And you're doing quite a job of that. You're, of course, 4th generation. This is the 5th and 6th generation on the ranch. What does that mean to you to represent that many years of progress in a very challenging climate to ranch in?
It has multiple meanings, Kevin. First of all, it's a process of passing it down, but that comes with a tremendous level of responsibility. But there's no greater lifestyle than being on the ranch on a daily basis with your grandchildren, your son-in-law and your daughter, working hand to hand, playing together, working together. But that responsibility of taking care of the land and making sure that there's a chance for these young people to come back and raise great beef.
Absolutely. And one last question for the folks sitting at home wondering what they can do to be more sustainable and be better stewards. What do you tell folks at home?
Our fellow producers are already sustainable. What they're doing, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep that question in your mind. Can I do better? Can I keep that continuous improvement? But tell your story. The consumer wants to know your story. They want to know about your family. They want to know about the animals, the care you have for your animals, and the love you have for your land.
That's outstanding. And speaking of stories, let's take a look at the Beatty Canyon Ranch story.
Steve Wooten and his family are moving their Red Angus cattle through the red rocks of Beatty Canyon Ranch in southeastern Colorado. This 27,000-acre cow-calf operation has been in Steve's family for generations.
This ranch was purchased by my great-grandfather in 1929, and our family has been there 4 generations for Joy and I, and we're fortunate to have the 5th and 6th generations on the ranch with us, and our daughter, son-in-law, and our grandchildren.
The Wootens were early adopters of conservation practices. They've had to be, since this part of Colorado receives fewer than 14 inches of moisture each year.
This is beautiful land where we live, but it has some challenges. Water is essential, and it's very sparse and hard to come by in this country.
The land in southeast Colorado where we live is fairly rough. It's semi-arid. We have periods of rain, and then we have periods of drought.
We're in an environment where we've got a lot of cactus, we've got minimal growth of forages, and we have to plan continuously how we can stockpile those forages against an area that doesn't have an abundant moisture.
With limited water and grass, Steve and Joy realized that a low stocking rate and good fences would allow them to rotate their cattle frequently, giving pastures a longer time to rest after grazing.
We now have 36 pastures that we can rotate cattle through so that the majority of the ranch during the growing season, the cattle aren't on it.
The reason why we rest the pasture is that when the cows go through the ranch and then the pasture gets rain on it, then it will grow grass and then the cows come back to that pasture. So it's kind of a full circle.
We've been able to improve our drought resistance through pasture management. By being able to have more rest in our pastures, grow more forage for next year by not having cattle in there, lets us go year over year without having to make drastic management decisions.
Steve closely monitors and measures the available forage, and the challenge to provide sufficient water to the cattle is always top of mind.
It's super important to have water on each of these pastures, and we have a pipeline system that runs from a pump, and it's running several miles to water all the cows in the pastures.
Putting tanks and strategically placing tanks in different areas of the pasture have allowed the cows to go and graze areas that predominantly they might not have grazed because there was no water. Also, by spreading the water out, you don't get a heavy impact in one certain area.
Another concern has been the impact of invasive plant species. In fact, several pastures and riparian areas required extensive work after years of harmful encroachment.
Tamarisk had completely dominated the riparian zone of the river, so we took on projects and worked with partners to eradicate the tamarisk on us. The other element that's been encroaching over hundreds of years due to fire suppression is Pinyon Juniper. We noticed in the 90s that we were about half stocked on a lot of our pastures that were heavily encroached by juniper. So over the years we've been slowly using mechanical means to clear the juniper out of those deep soils that should be predominantly grass, but still leaving plenty of juniper for wildlife, for birds, and for soil holding in areas where erosion is prone.
That is amazing to see the after effects after you clear the pasture and how much you gain back the grass. You're gaining acres back, the grazable acres.
It's not always just talking the talk, but putting their money where their mouth is, and they do it, with their own boots on the ground. It takes time, it's not easy, especially with as many things as Steve and Beatty Canyon is a part of, but it's still important, and they make the time to do it.
Beatty Canyon Ranch is home to a diverse wildlife population, and the family's management practices are aimed at improving the health of the range so both cattle and wildlife can thrive.
The things we've done to improve the land and the water, we've seen great improvement in the wildlife. We've seen more deer and bighorn sheep and turkey.
At Beatty Canyon Ranch, stewardship and conservation is in their DNA, and the Wooten and Burnham families work together to carry forward a legacy that has lasted for generations.
I love what I do because it fills my heart. It gives me great pride to see my kids and my parents all together.
I don't ever wake up in the morning and not appreciate where I live. And just truly blessed to be here and to be part of this family and this operation. I do feel there's some big shoes to fill, but I'm willing to take up the challenge and carry on the legacy of the ranch and the family and pass it on to the 6th generation.
It's the best life to be with your kids and to be in the great outdoors and to see God's creation every day. The land is everything to us. It's who we are.
To say that I love this land is even not enough of an expression of how we feel about this, how blessed we are that the Lord has put us in this position where we can be here, we can grow our family here, that we can leave a legacy behind.
And with me now is Damon Palmer with Corteva Agrisciences, one of the key sponsors of the Environmental Stewardship Award program. And Damon, your organization has been sponsoring this program nearly from its inception. Why is this such an important program for you to support?
Well, it's an important program for us to support because we get to highlight what farmers and ranchers do every day. And it aligns very well with what we do at Corteva. And so, you know, it's an investment, and that's how we view it, as an investment and a give back to the industry so we can help tell those stories.
You talk about the things that farmers and ranchers do every day, and certainly one of the elements of this program is being good spokespeople for the stewardship and conservation practices farmers and ranchers are doing all across this country. What do you want the public to know about stewardship and conservation as it relates to the beef industry?
I really want the public to know what we see in these regional winners and then the national winner. Those of us that work in the industry fully understand how much these folks care for their land, care for their herd, and how they are true stewards of the land. And you know, there's a narrative out there in the general population that beef production runs counter to what's good for the environment, and we've got to get these stories out so that the general population can hear them.
And you all as a company are very committed to helping provide the tools and the technology to do just that. Tell us a little bit about some of those tools and technology that Corteva offers.
Yeah, well, Corteva Agriscience, we've got a purpose. All 20,000 plus employees around the world wake up, and we have a purpose that is to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume, ensuring progress for generations to come. And if that does not align to what these folks are doing and what we're investing in to provide tools for them to help steward the land, I don't know what would be.
Thank you so much for coming this evening, and thank you for all your years of support for this program. It's a great program, and we greatly appreciate it. Now, to learn more about the Environmental Stewardship Award program, go to environmentalstewardship.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll introduce you to a Virginia producer who's managing 2 businesses, one on a track and another in the field. That story when we return. Stay with us.
Weeds will rob me of my investments. The weeds are not palatable to the cows. They will not eat them. Or if they do eat them, some of them may be toxic. So there's a return on investment by allowing there to be more grass available to be grazed by the cattle.
In the world of cattle vaccines, when you see fewer reactions, you'll notice healthier cattle and higher profits too. Because sometimes good protection is about what you don't see. Protect your productivity with cattle vaccines from Merck Animal Health. Proven to cause fewer reactions. You'll like what you see. Our trusted portfolio is just one more way Merck Animal Health works for you. Talk to your veterinarian and visit cattlefriendlyvaccines.com to learn more.
Racing cars and raising cattle. You might not put the two together, although both professions certainly involve lots of risk. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Matt Fleck has a story of how a professional drag racer, used to living life in the fast lane, balances the work of running his own cattle and hemp farming operation.
For Matt Hagen, working on his home farm in Southwest Virginia is very different from his other full-time job. When he's not behind the wheel on a racetrack, Matt spends his days growing crops and taking care of his cattle.
I got started in the cattle industry kind of by chance, I guess. You know, I kind of bought a place and 100 acres, and I was trying to sell a house and basically couldn't get, the market was really bad and couldn't get it sold. And I'd been around horses and stuff my whole life with my family, but never really any cattle or anything like that. And so this 100 acres, you know, I was basically kind of like, what am I going to do with it? It's going to get overgrown, you know, like, what do I need to do? And so I went out and bought 50 cows. And that being said, I am a first generation farmer. So to start up a farm was, you know, I had to go out and get loans and buy equipment and buy land and pay for fencing and all that kind of stuff. And everybody goes like, man, why would you do that? But like at the time it made sense for me because I had this raw land and I needed something to do with that. And then I just really fell in love with it. And I just really had it become a passion of mine.
Matt's racing career also came about almost by chance as a family friend got him interested, but he worked hard and he's had success on the track, winning the NHRA Funny Car World Championship in 2011 and 2014, as well as many other event titles.
So to explain to you guys what a fuel funny car is, it's 11,000 horsepower, it's 330 miles an hour, and it happens in under 4 seconds. So we pull about 6.5 Gs on a run and almost -7 Gs putting the parachutes out. So I grew up around here, locally here in Christiansburg, Virginia, and never really thought about being a race car driver, or never was like my ambition in life growing up, you know, to go fast on the drag strip. One thing led to another, and I started just doing these local drags on the weekends and just fell in love with it, you know. And I've been with Don Schumacher Racing almost 13 years now, and it's been great. I've won 2 world championships, set 17 national records, won 37 races, and you know, it's a joy to crawl in the car every time, you know. But I've met a lot of great people and it's opened up new doors.
Those open doors allow him an outstanding opportunity to share the story of cattle production and agriculture with his fans.
Our sport is unlike any other sport. We're very fan accessible. So every ticket is a pit pass, so you don't have to be like some hot pass or know somebody or whatever. When you come into an NHRA race, you get to come up to me as a driver, from me to you, or whatever the ropes may be. You know, and that's what's really cool, is that as a driver and as a producer and a farmer, people will talk to you about their equipment and their farming operations and why they're farming and what they're doing with their stuff. And being able to engage with those fans like that really puts it back to being like salt of the earth kind of folks. You know, bringing New Holland in as a corporate sponsor, really, you know, everybody knows that I run all New Holland stuff now, and so the feedback that I get back from the folks that are running Blue, you know what I mean, and, which is great. I love hearing it, but it's something they can relate to you and they can feel it, and they're like, you know, we run the same equipment as you do, and we like this because of this feature, and we do this because of this, and you know, these hay cutters are better because of that, or whatever it may be. It's just kind of cool to see it all make a full circle, you know.
This year on the farm, Matt and his team recognized the demand for local beef sold directly to consumers, so they worked quickly and began offering beef through Hagen Cattle Company.
I started a Hagen Cattle Company to, you know, when this pandemic happened, just because I was like, how do we feed people? You know what I mean? How do we get more beef into more, you know, freezers around here locally? And you know, it was a little bit of a challenge to do that. You know, basically a lot of red tape and a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees. But once I started it and offered it, it flew off the shelves for us, you know, and we couldn't keep up. I've always had cow-calf operation, and you know, selling pot loads of calves and different things like that. We'd wean calves, we'd sell them, you know, balling and different things like that. Just kind of whatever the market depended upon, or what we thought we could get the most for, you know, our dollar. And everybody knows in the cattle business that you're splitting pennies to make dollars.
Never one to shy away from risk, Matt saw the potential to grow his operation by producing hemp as a result of the legalization of the crop in the 2018 Farm Bill. His True Harvest Farms is now one of Virginia's largest hemp farms, not only growing the crop, but also processing it into CBD products.
True Harvest Farms is a large-scale hemp farm based in Christiansburg, Virginia, owned by Matt Hagen. We grow industrial hemp for CBD and take it from plants in the greenhouse to the field to finished products, and offer finished products straight to the consumer from our farm.
Getting into hemp is something that I've been thinking about for a long time.
From a growing standpoint and from the agricultural standpoint, we definitely have a lot of challenges with this crop that you wouldn't have in a normal circumstance farming. You know, first off, it's regulated by the state. The Department of Agriculture, you know, monitors how much we grow, and, you know, there's licensing procedures and reports that have to be done that go along with all of that. And, you know, then we get tested at the end of the year.
Now looking back, moving forward in our second year of hemp, we definitely made some changes. We definitely made some adjustments to our overall production and the way that we're going about, you know, our input costs and different things like that.
The hemp industry is still in its infancy, so, you know, it's not quite established to where you have staple varieties at this point.
And with the addition of the hemp operation, Matt turned to one of his race sponsors, his friends at New Holland, to help supply his expanded machinery needs.
And what was great with New Holland was that, you know, I already had a great relationship on the cattle side of things. And I sat down with the folks at New Holland and said, hey, look, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do it. And here's, you know, I'm obviously going to need more tractors and more discs and more planters and, you know, just all this other stuff to get going. And they were like, we want to help you do this. Like, this is something that we believe in as well, and that we have other producers out here doing this, and we want to get in the game. And then already having a relationship with them, I was just so excited to hear the words coming out of their mouth like, yes, let's go do this. I think what's really cool is that the folks at New Holland, they were educated enough to understand that this is a good thing that we're trying to help people with, and they wanted to take their resources and put it behind this hemp company here at True Harvest and really support what we're doing.
One of the world's leading drag racers, a cattle producer, and a hemp farmer. It's clear Matt Hagen is not slowing down a bit on the track or on the farm. In Southwest Virginia, I'm Matt Fleck, reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
And we're really excited to be joined by Matt Hagen today. Matt, it is so good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Kate, glad to be out here. I mean, this is amazing. Amazing show. This is my first time here at the Ncba Cattlemen to Cattlemen show with New Holland. You know, just impressed already, you know. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm only here for a day, but I'm going to try to take some time to take it all in. But it's such a big show, I don't know if I'll get it all in.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. We're really glad to have you here. You know, it's been about a year since we've been out at your place doing a little filming for the New Holland segment that we put together. What's new on the farm?
Well, the cattle are fat and happy like me, so that's a plus, you know, and we're feeding a lot more cattle. I put in a lot of feed bunks. We got into a lot more corn. We planted a couple hundred acres of corn since you last been there. You know, and just kind of turning cattle over a little bit, keeping about 700 mama cows, a cow-calf operation still, and you know, we're really putting this New Holland equipment to work out there. We've already put up a little over 4,700 rolls this year, and obviously we're going to do a lot of corn and grinding hay and different things like that. And it's just been one of those things, we're kind of watching the market, seeing how things are going, and you know, so far things are staying pretty steady and strong. And I got a big group of cattle I'm ready to sell in here in a couple weeks, so hopefully it'll stay strong for a little bit longer. You know, it's just one of those things where, for me, you know, the farm, you know, with the racing and everything else. And I think after you came out, we ended up winning the world champion. So it made me a 3-time world champion in fuel funny car class with Don Schumacher Racing, obviously Mopar and Dodge, which is another brand up under the Stellantis brand now. It used to be FCA, but Stellantis kind of took it over, and the big merger and stuff like that. So we were really, really proud to celebrate a championship for them. But what's really cool is, like, you know, it's 11,000 horsepower, 330 miles an hour under 4 seconds, and I get out here and this is a pile of horsepower out here on the farm, but it's only 6 miles an hour, you know what I mean? So I get to slow everything down a little bit and have some fun out here at the farm. And my kids, you know, I have a bunch of young kids. I have 4 young ones, and my oldest is 14 years old, and he's been feeding a bunch of, you know, bottle calves, and he's chomping at the bit to get on a tractor. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, just another year or two, buddy, you know, and I just have a hard time kind of turning him loose out there. But soon enough, he's already got his sights set on that T7 I got. You know, he's like, that's a big tractor. He's like, I want to drive it, you know. So, but just blessed to be out here with you guys having fun at this Ncba Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Got a great sponsor with New Holland. They're supporting the racing. They're supporting what we do at the farm. Kind of make a full circle with everything, and it's I guess I couldn't have it any better, you know?
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. I mean, you're busy between the farm, between the racing. You are doing some direct-to-beef sales, right? So you're selling Hagen Cattle. You got a little meat company. Those
Hagen Cattle Company.
Yeah.
You can go online, check it out. But everything we have is why I got into more, corn and finishing cattle. Cottonseed meal. We grind and make a lot of our own feed there at the farm, and we bring them up from off of our mama cows all the way to finished, 1,400 pounds, and kind of started it in the pandemic, and it really blew up, so it was one of those things where I took a big risk, and instead of just selling my cattle to these other feed yards and different things like that, I said, no, we're going to finish these cattle out. We have a lot of cattle to do that with, and we've been doing it, and it's been working great. So like anything, business is risky, but it was a great risk and a great chance that we took, and it's worked out really well.
Great. Matt, thanks for your time today. It was great to see you again. We'll look forward to watching your racing career. We'll look forward to hearing what's coming up on the farm again, and we'll let you get back to the trade show now.
Hey, as soon as we get back home, we're going to put these New Holland pieces of equipment back to work and keep it going, but I'm enjoying the time out here. This is an amazing show out here. I can't wait to take it all in and see it, and hopefully see some of you guys out at the racetrack soon.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely make that work.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Kevin, we're going to send it back to you.
Still ahead, it's time for another visit with the one and only Baxter Black. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
When the field is your office, you never get tired of going to work. Cut, rake, bale, repeat. New Holland offers the power and versatility to get through the day. From small squares to large squares and everything in between, New Holland has you covered. Visit your local dealer today to find out more. New Holland.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
Everywhere I go, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. And they get to do it for nothing. And that's not the only perk. They're asked to donate to causes, contribute their cash and their time, to get up early, usually stay late, and always claim they don't mind. They serve on boards and commissions, participate in the potluck, bring snacks for the kindergartners. For hay rides, they furnish the truck. They take their turn on the fair board as deacons or soccer moms, jury duty or Salvation Army, ringing bells and gathering alms. They raise funds for endless projects. The food bank, the FFA, missions in faraway countries, Girl Scouts and the PTA. They call on the shut-ins, fight cancer, or maybe teach others to read. Through Rotary, Lions or Kiwanis, they work to fulfill a need. The 10% you can count on to sign up, to help and belong. Always ready and willing, they make our communities strong. Well, they often don't get the glory or noticed by everyone, but they're easy to find at a party, cleaning up after it's done. Well, what causes man to serve his fellow man? At best, I discern not money, because sometimes the thanks is all they'll earn. And it can't be evolution where only the toughest survive, or lessons learned in a classroom. Compassion, see page 25. But it's there in certain people. Giving satisfies their needs. You can't find it in a brain scan, but you can see it in their deeds. No physical exam can spot it, and it won't show up on the chart. But if I had to guess what it is, I'd say it comes from the heart. So I'll just admit that we're lucky the 10% are right here, because without them, nothing would happen. And they do it all volunteer. Vol from the Greek meaning work like a horse, and untier meaning without pay. Can I sign you up? This is Baxter Black from out there.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining Ncba. When you join, you'll have access to key policy updates and insights from Beltway Beef. It's the best way to hear directly from Ncba's DC team. Beltway Beef provides valuable policy information, and it's free for Ncba members. Stay in touch with Beltway Beef. Join now at ncba.org.
It can be tough to keep up with all the issues that impact the beef cattle business. That's why Ncba's Cattlemen to Cattlemen is dedicated to bringing you valuable news, information, and education. The goal is to give you the knowledge you need to make the best decisions for your operation. So if you're looking for in-depth coverage of the beef industry and the issues that matter to you, don't miss Cattlemen to Cattlemen, debuting every week on RFD TV and on YouTube.
Every year, the Ncba team works hard to bring entertaining and motivating speakers to the Cattle Industry Convention, and this year was no exception. Russell Nemitz is standing by with Kix Brooks of the country music duo Brooks and Dunn, who kicked things off at the opening general session.
Well, it isn't every day that you get a Country Music Hall of Fame inductee to kick off the Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba Trade Show's general session, but that's exactly what happened this year with Kix Brooks, who attended the conference here in Nashville. Of course, he's one half of the award-winning duo Brooks and Dunn. Kix, thanks for being with us here in Nashville, here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, and talk about what it was like to talk to these cattle producers from across America and play some of your music for them.
That was great. Great crowd. It's kind of where I come from. I got to still have a few beef cattle and at our farm, and it's just this is America here, man. It's cattle producers and songs like Ronnie and I sing and have written fit right in with this crowd.
Absolutely. Well, I did hear you say you have a few head of cattle back on your operation just outside of town here, and you also made mention that you bleed red, white, and blue, which is exactly what this audience believes into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's not really a question, but it leads to what I'm all about. And, just my history is there. I'm just a patriotic, corny dude who believes in supporting our country, through all its trials and tribulations. And it's a lot easier to throw rocks at stuff that's going on than it is to roll up your sleeves and get behind it. And I'm really proud of my trips to Iraq and Afghanistan, supporting our troops, and in many other entities. There's a lot of people that spend their whole lives taking care of troops that come back that are having difficulties and all that. And I just love to see America get together a little better than they are right now.
Absolutely, well said. Hey, talk a little bit about your ACM National Personality Award that you received earlier this year. That's pretty cool.
It is. I've been doing, Casey Kasem started that countdown show. It's actually the longest running country countdown show out there, and I've been doing it 15 years. A lot of people don't realize, like, would you just start doing that? I'm like, you need to turn your radio on, dude. But it's really fun. It's fun for me when I started, interviewing people that I was touring with and working with back in 06, whenever it was. And now it's really great with a lot of these acts that are just now catching their wave, getting to talk to them about how it was for us, how it is for you, what we have in common. Basically, we're all doing the same thing. It's not a good place for egos. It's because there's plenty of kids out there can run circles around me on a guitar, and it's just it's fun watching them catch their deal.
Hey, you and Ronnie have a lot of fans out in rural America. Talk about how special rural America is to country musicians like yourself.
Well, it's funny because if you have some success in this business, you wind up playing a bunch of big cities, and it's neat how many people out there in New Jersey and New York and even downtown California, when you get to tour doing what we do, you realize we are all in this together, and we all do in our hearts come from the same place. And I think that's really what our music's about. It doesn't matter that we come from rural America. If your heart's in the right place, people out there in all walks of life can identify with it.
Well, you've blazed an amazing career with your partner, Ronnie Dunn, and over the years, I bet you've enjoyed some delicious steaks at some awesome steakhouses across this great country of ours. Before I let you go, what is your favorite steak? Would you tell our audience?
Gosh, it kind of depends on what sort of mood I'm in, because that sounds like I'm playing to the crowd, but probably in the middle of the road, a bone-in ribeye. I like something with a lot of marble to it. But man, there's some nights just a little fillet with with some good greens on the side is a great dinner. So depends on the wine, depends on the mood. But there's a lot of different cuts of beef. I don't mind a New York strip, something that's kind of toothy. You got to chew on a little bit either. So whatever.
Well, again, we appreciate you being here at Nashville with our convention and joining us here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen. By the way, Brooks & Dunn is headed back on tour this fall. Get all the tour dates online at brooks-dunn.com.
Now, don't forget, you can tune in to Cattlemen over the next few weeks as we continue bringing you lots of great stories and information from the 2021 Cattle Industry Convention and Ncba trade show here in Nashville. Well, that wraps up this edition of Ncba's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.